Underwood. I'm a portrait photographer. Lived in Piqua for 40 years. I went to school at Piqua, or Port Clinton High School. Photography-wise, when I started, there was no portrait photography schools as such. So we did Professional Photographers of Ohio, or of America, had 1-week classes that they did in the summertime in Winona Lake, Indiana. So that's how you learn. I went there numerous times throughout the 70s. Jerry Shoemaker had a photography studio for sale, and I purchased his studio in July of 1979. Before that, I worked at a studio in St. Clairsville, Ohio. I did that for 4 or 5 years. Before that, I worked at a studio in Sandusky, Ohio. And before that, I worked at a studio in Port Clinton, Ohio. You learn something a little bit about every facet of the business, wherever you're at, doing whatever. So it's always different. Before that, I spent 4 years in the Navy, and before that, I worked at my dad's restaurant, Underwood's Fine Foods. I remember when I was, 10 or 11, why I peeled 100-pound potatoes a day in the summertime. So that was my job for them, and made French fries. It's closed now. He sold it, and it went through numerous owners, and eventually just closed. No, actually, he had an uncle who had it, and after the war ended, why they had invited him to come here or to Port Clinton, and he ended up within a year took it over. And so at one time in the summertime we have 8 or 9 places that he would run, because there was a lot of operations that were around the lake that were just open for the summer and had food service, and then he would take on those. So it did, but after being in the service, I thought, well, the service is way better than being in the restaurant business. So yes, I spent 2 years in Japan and a year in Spain and a few other places in between. They don't shoot at you usually. No, that was Vietnam time, so if you didn't go in the Navy, you'd be drafted in the Army. So take your choice. I was a communications technician. Well, I was in the Navy in Japan while you get interested in cameras, because it's like that's what everybody does over there. So I had several 35mm cameras and other lenses, and you just went out and took pictures. Everybody had cameras. Everybody took pictures of everybody. So did that more in Spain, and on the base there, I taught people how to do things in the darkroom. They had a place where you could do that. So I did that, and then there was a studio in Port Clinton that was looking for help about the time I was ready to get out, and he used to come to my dad's restaurant, and they talk and all that. So I started working in a portrait studio when I got out. 1979. So, and it was on Downing Street, and it was in a house. Jerry had been here for, I think he came here in like 1946. So, and he was ready to retire, and there was a color lab rep at the time that we both knew, and that's how it kind of came about. That the color lab rep told me, and Jerry was looking for somebody, so I came over here and talked to him and looked at what he had and what he was doing, and so that's how it happened. Well, equipment has all changed. He still used an 8x10 studio camera to do a lot of his work, and he had a big bank of fluorescent lights, and I think he had one power pack with electronic flash, but this is pretty simple. So, and still did a lot of black and white, and had a darkroom in the back of the place. So, well, I've kind of been through the gauntlet on that, because other places I worked, why we still did large studio cameras and sheet film, and so I had learned that and still did that here to an extent, but I had medium format cameras of my own, so I really went to that after that. So, and but I've done 8x10 black and white sheet film all the way down to 35 millimeter. So had extensive darkroom experience, and then the one place where this was in the 70s, and they were encouraging you to buy your own color lab at the time. So I got experience in that too. So I don't know, it's kind of hard to go into, I guess, without, it goes into a deep hole. So, but you know, like in black and white, when we made proofs, why we had what we call pink proofs, and you put, or they call it printout paper, and you put the negative on top of the paper, and you put it in a frame, and you put it over fluorescent lights, and about 15 minutes later you had a proof. And so, and it's just changed, and it keeps changing constantly. And it's like when we went into color, well, then that was a big thing, and they called it natural color at the time. And so that sort of came about having color labs, and then they encouraged you to send all the stuff to them. And but I mean, I remember doing weddings, and in those days, if you did film, you were doing film, and if you did 150 shots at a wedding, well, that was probably quite a few. And then you put it in an envelope and mail it out, and nothing ever happened, but you always hope that it didn't. But today, when they shoot them on digital, and it's like right there, but then people do backups of that and backups of the backups, and so you put your film in the mail and it never came back. Well, that was it. It was gone. I actually did my first wedding when I was in Spain. There was a young couple there that looking for somebody to take pictures of their wedding, and that's the first wedding I ever did. At one time, I was doing about 40 weddings a year. They had singles dances in Dayton, and a lot. They were. I don't remember the building. It was in the Oregon district. Big building. They used to have up on the 3rd floor. One time they had Wiley's Comedy Club there, and so they had them on Sunday nights. So that worked out. We still had. I guess that's the end of the disco era or somewhere like that. So it happened over months. It's like I'd see her there and we'd talk a little bit or dance a little bit, and then it's like it just kind of kept evolving. So she had worked at Elder Beerman's in Dayton, actually in Centerville. So when she moved up here, well, then she worked at the store when they had the Elder Beerman's here in town. So, and then at some point, and I couldn't tell you when, why then she started working for me in the studio. So, doing some sales and just kind of general stuff, answering the phone and all that kind of other things that you do. And we started traveling really, well, the one lab we dealt with had a yearly meeting, and they went to nice places. I mean, we went to Palm Springs one year, we went to San Francisco, and so we would take a few other days and stay in these places longer, and that kind of got the bug for us. And but it really wasn't until 2014, I think, when we started doing the river boats. Well, we would watch PBS a lot, and they always had the Viking sponsored that, and that she's always wanting me to find something I would want to do for vacation, and I always said, well, you just pick something, we'll go. And so I said, well, why don't we do one of these? And so that's what we did, and we liked that and went a few more times. Oh, we've been to Europe several times, and most anywhere you go, and you go to Paris and you want to go back again and again, there's always something to see and photograph and do there. And been to Prague and Budapest, and it's just the architecture and there is just, you've got things that are, of course in Europe everything's way older than they are over here. And go in the old towns. I don't know that I have a process. I just try to find a different angle or outlet for it. So, oh well, we do several of the art shows around, and it's just interesting to go and see what people can create, whether it's painting or photography or ceramics or all the different things that people, create themselves. It's interesting to see what they come up with. So when they have some place where you can see that, you just don't know what people in the community do or can do. So that's a place, in a sense, you show your wares. All the arts are, in a sense, an entertainment in many ways that people go to watch, listen, look at. So it's an entertainment. Well, goals photography-wise now, just keep photographing and try to do things to photograph things I really enjoy and not necessarily have to. I don't remember. It had a lot of megapixels because it was really one of the first professional digital cameras, and I still have files from that I've made 20 by 24s of easily. It was a Canon DCS-1. A lot of photographers that had certain traits or the things that you would see, and of course you weren't always sure exactly what they told you was really true or not. And so you just sort of get ideas from each of them, take what works for you, and move on. So, well, we still had art in grade school, and I remember different things from that you end up using in photography that you weren't aware of at the time. I remember being in third grade and they taught you perspective, and you put the point on the thing and then they draw the lines out and make that, and it's like, well, that's just like leading lines, what they call it today, and or highlights and shadows. I used to draw a can on the bulletin board or the chalkboard and shadow in the one side to make it look round. So and I remember in high school I had art too, and we just drew different things, and it's like eventually that all came back to mean something, or something that helped me in photography later on, that you would, at the time you wouldn't think that, but it does. So you just never know.